everyone and welcome back to my channel, or if you're new here, hi, my name is Nicole and I'm a part-time reseller on Poshmark. Today I want to talk about all things live shows on Poshmark. They recently, within the last year, have released the ability to go live on Poshmark and to sell things that way. So I want to talk about my experiences so far doing that. I've tried all the different ways, the silent auction, the silent with audio, and then just the actual live. And I want to talk about tips and tricks that I learned, things that you could do to prepare if you're nervous or if you don't know how to prepare for them, and then how to actually do the live sale, and then tips that you can use during your lives. So if that is something that was interesting to you, definitely keep watching and make sure that you're subscribed so you don't miss any other future reselling content that I do. But without further ado, let's get right into today's video. So first things first, how do you actually apply to do lives? There is a link that you have to go to that you can apply for. You have to be a Posh ambassador. I think right now it's currently only open to Posh ambassadors, but it's currently in the beta phase, so that's why it's only open to Posh ambassadors right now. So make sure that you're a Posh ambassador before you apply. And there is a current wait list. I know when I applied actually end of last year, and I got accepted early February. But I know as of now, there is definitely a wait list. I want to say it was like 16 weeks last time I heard. Definitely could be more, definitely could be less at this point, but there is a wait list. So you're not going to hear back right away. And so make sure you do that as your first step, because it's not just going to be something that you get automatically. So if you need the link to apply, I can put that in the description and that can help you out with getting started. So after you get accepted to do your lives, it's kind of on you to schedule them whenever you want. You are not going to get the training and assistant packages that the prior people that started out doing the lives a couple months back got, because they don't really do that anymore. They kind of just throw you into it and then expect you to figure it out. So that's why I wanted to make this video, to kind of help anybody that didn't really know where to begin, because I know when I got it, I didn't know where to begin. I actually had to ask a few of my friends that had done it already to kind of learn some tips and tricks on how to do it, because I didn't really know. So there are 3 different types of lives that you can do. There's 2 main ones, the silent and then the live. And then you could also do a silent with audio. So there's kind of like 3 different options. So let's talk about the different options and why some are beneficial and why some, the pros and cons of each. So for the silent auctions, that is just kind of basically a slideshow of the images that you post in each listing. So you pick your listings ahead of time, which items you want to put in the deck, as they call it. You have 50 items that can go in a deck at once from your closet, and you could also add items from other people's closets as well. And actually how you do that is you just click as if you would share the item, and then you click share to Posh Show or whatever, and then it automatically adds it to the deck, and then you would just auction it for them. Once you add your items to the show, and once you create your show, you would just basically go to My Posh Shows, create show, and then you could put in like a title, a picture, and you can just say, I want to do either a silent live or a actual live. So for the silent auctions as well, once you have the items chosen, and you can also choose them during the silent as well, but once you have items chosen, you can click each of them in the deck on the screen, and then you can just scroll through them. And once you click to auction an item, a slideshow of all the pictures in that listing will appear on the screen. This is what the potential buyers or people watching your show are also seeing. This is also why it's so important to make sure that your photos are good and you have measurements and everything in them, because that's what people are going to use to determine if they want to buy or not. You basically just click to auction off, you list whatever price that you want it to be, and then people can start bidding. And then when you go to the next item, you just kind of do the same thing. And these silent auctions you could do for as long or as little as you want. Typically, I do them for about an hour, maybe 2 hours, give or take. I actually find that I don't have a ton of success with silence, because it's really hard to get people engaged, and it's really hard to get people in the actual show itself. So that is one of the big downsides, is it's not really engaging, and people kind of are afraid to ask questions because you have to type the questions. But that is also another benefit of doing a silent, is you can do a silent and use audio and just kind of explain the item as it's being shown on the slideshow. So you can say like, this is a new tag piece, this is a floral piece. You could really explain it as the item is being shown in the auction, and then you can set it to whatever amount of time, either the 30 seconds, the 45 seconds, or 1 minute to auction. But a lot of people don't really feel like the silent shows are really personable, and they don't really feel like they are engaged in them. So a lot of people don't actually show up for the lives when they're silenced. So that's why I actually find that doing the real lives where you're actually on the camera is more important and more beneficial. So let's talk about the benefits of that. One, somebody could actually see you showing the item. You can show if it's stretchy, you can show the material, you could show flaws, you could talk about the item, and it's just a little bit better to buy from someone when there's like a person behind the screen. And it's also more entertaining because people have like you to be entertained by. They have like a show going on, they can play some music. You know, it's really a more fun event for everyone involved. So whatever kind of live you choose to do, whether you choose to do a silent or whether you choose to do an actual live show, it's up to you. It's all based on what you prefer. I think I prefer to do the silence just because I don't love being on camera, believe it or not. But I know a lot of people have a lot of success with doing the lives where they're actually on the screen. And so if that works for you, by all means, go ahead. Pick whatever works best for you. And you could always start with the silence and then go to the lives, or you could do kind of whatever. You don't have to do, start with one and then only do the other. I kind of mix and match now, and I've done a silent after doing a regular live. It's just whatever I feel like doing. So let's talk about how to prepare for a show regardless of what kind of option that you choose. So you want to make a banner page or like an ad page to advertise for the show, and that is the image that you put on the show listing itself that kind of draws people in. And I also really recommend having an advertisement in your actual closet as a listing, kind of telling people to like that listing so they will be notified when you go live on Poshmark. I think that really helps get a more consistent audience to your shows, and it gets those people that really want to watch your shows to your shows, because anyone that has liked that listing will be notified when you go live. So I think those two things are really important to do beforehand. And you could also use your social medias to advertise that you have a show, and you could provide the show link by going into the show itself on Poshmark and clicking share link and then copy. And then it will basically copy that link to wherever you post it. So you could send it to friends, family, social media, whatever you want. And that way people have it and they could save it on their phone. But you can't see if someone has saved your show or not, unfortunately. But for them, they have a notification, and when you go live, they will be notified. So I think that's the best way to prepare, is to just make your advertisements and make sure that you're publicizing it to anyone that you want that is going to come to the show. The next thing that you could do to prepare is pick out items that you think are going to be good to sell during that show. You don't always have to just go with those items. A lot of people end up actually going through more and more bins as they're on the live. So it's kind of, you can do it at your freedom. But like for me, especially for my first show, I definitely wanted to prepare, and I definitely wanted to pick out the items ahead of time and at least have something to start with. So pick out items that you think are going to sell during a live. Try to pick out a variety of sizes, and also try and make sure you have a couple of different things of each size, because you want kind of people to try and be able to bundle. And so if you have multiple sizes of the same thing, then people are going to be more likely to be able to bundle. And also, don't just have clothes. Have shoes, have handbags, have accessories. People are always looking for a bunch of different things. So have a wide variety of things, but also have a wide variety of sizes, but also a bunch of the same sizes. That's going to help you be a little bit more successful in your shows. And another thing that you could do is you could also pick a theme if you would like to do a theme. You don't have to. I have never done a theme, but you can choose to do, like, if you want to do only summer items, if you want to do bathing suits, if you want to do jeans, you could really do whatever you want, and you could make it themed if you want. But you don't have to. Some people like doing that because then it keeps them organized and it makes it really easy. But if you want to just do whatever in your closet, you can totally do that as well. And that is basically it on, preparing. You could also set up a nice background and backdrop for your show. I have a clothing rack that I highly recommend having, some kind of clothing rack or display area for your pieces. That's going to help you during the show. So you could pull off the items from the rack, or you could have them being displayed behind you so then people can see them, and somebody might be like, oh, can I see that floral dress behind you? And then it would be really easy for them to kind of know what's coming up ahead. So I recommend having a clothing rack. If you don't already have one, maybe that would be a good investment piece if you think you're going to consistently do lives. But just start out with something to be able to hang up all your items. You definitely don't want them like just on the floor everywhere, because that's going to make it a little bit harder to stay organized. And you could also, display them by size or by color or by the order that you want, and that would be really helpful when you're actually going through the live. So that's basically it on preparation. Once you do all this, you're pretty much ready to go. There's not really much prep work that goes into it. And you'll get notified by Poshmark when your live is coming up, like when you have 30 minutes, when you have 5 minutes right before the live, and then you just hit go live. And it's really simple and it's actually really intuitive. You wouldn't think it would be as easy as it is, but it's pretty easy and pretty straightforward when you're actually on the live to figure out how to work everything. So let's talk about some tips and tricks on things that will help you be more successful during lives. These are things that either I learned firsthand or I've heard from other people that are really helpful things to do and that have gotten them a lot of success. So I mentioned earlier that you want to be very personable in your videos. You want people to want to be there. You want people to engage in the chat and really be there to shop. A lot of the times with the silence, it's really hard for people to be engaged because they're just kind of like typing to you and they're typing to another screen. They're not typing to like you actively. So I find it to be the best thing if you are really engaging with them, asking them where they're from, asking them what they're looking for, asking about them and, you know, everything else. You want to really have a conversation going. And I think people really like that and they can really feel like they're connecting with you if you are holding a conversation. And I know it's really hard. Like I actually found that this was really hard for me to do when I was going live because I was like, all right, I'm showing the item. I don't want to start talking about something else if somebody has a question about the item. But I also don't want to like have awkward silence here waiting. So it's like you kind of have to have a healthy balance between the two. And that's really hard for some people at first to get used to. But I think once you start getting used to the flow of doing a live, it'll get easier and it'll be a lot easier to be on camera and hold a conversation with your potential buyers. So definitely just start asking questions and really start engaging with them, and I think that will help you have a more consistent audience. And I already mentioned this, but you definitely want to prepare ahead of time and you definitely want to advertise to your potential people on Poshmark or anywhere else that you think people would join from. This is so important and it really helps. It doesn't really matter how far in advance you advertise. Some people say they advertise the same day. Some people advertise a week in advance. It really just depends on if you're, you know, planning a show or if you want to do one spur of the moment. I found if I plan it or if I do one spur of the moment, I have equal luck. But some people find that they have a lot more luck when they advertise longer and they really get people excited for it. So whatever works for you, you can do either, but definitely, regardless of what you do, advertise and make sure that you're prepared ahead of time. And also going off of what I said before, you want to have a good setup. You want your background to be nice, you want it to be organized, you want it to look good, and if you have a clothing rack, that's going to help you be a little bit more successful. And also, I highly recommend having really good lighting. This makes such a difference. You know, you'd be really shocked at how many lives I've watched where the lighting is so bad and you really can't see the colors of the items. Someone will be like, oh, this is a teal color, and I will be like, wow, I thought that was like a dark blue. Like the colors just don't come off well if you have bad lighting. So make sure that you're shining a ring light, shining any kind of light on yourself and the items, and also make sure that you're talking about what the color of the item is because it could be very misleading over a camera. So have a good setup and have good lighting, and that is going to really, really help. The next thing that you really want to do is have a measuring tape on hand. So many people are asking for measurements and asking for, you know, different questions and stuff like that. They want to know how much it will stretch or something like that. So definitely have a measuring tape on hand. It will come in handy, and you'd be surprised how many people want to know certain measurements. And even if they're in the listing, people don't want to have to click on the thing and scroll through to find it. So if you could just tell them in the moment, you could say, okay, well, not stretched, it's this material, but then stretched, it's this length. So that would really help people determine if the item's going to fit them or not. The next thing that I'm going to recommend is to not fill your deck completely. So like I mentioned earlier, you do have 50 items that are available to put in the show at once. You do not have to fill that from the start, and I actually highly recommend not doing that because you're going to eventually want to add or switch items in anyway. So I would just recommend putting in a couple. You could always add more, you could always delete some. But you definitely want to have some in there, and then you could always add more and remove some. And then also a lot of people like to do the kind of whole thing where they just kind of make the listing there, where it's an unlisted item. That's becoming really popular, where people take items that are not really listed in their Poshmark closets now, and they start auctioning them off. And then at that point, you would just make the listing right then and there. You would just put whatever title the item is, and then you would just go from there. So that's also why it's beneficial not to fill the deck completely. Otherwise, you have to remove items to then be able to do that, because you can only have 50 at once, which I think they should definitely up that, especially because so many people run through way more than 50 items. The next thing that you want to do is start your pricing low, and then you could always go up from there. So many people are looking to get a really good deal on the Posh shows. So I highly recommend starting as low as you can. For me and my business, I want to keep my prices at a minimum of $10 per item just because I want to be able to make a profit on things. But I know so many people that are willing to start as low as $3 and then go up to, $5, $7 and stuff like that. I recommend starting low, and you could always increase from there, and people are always willing to auction. So you could start at 3 or 5 if you're willing to, and then people will auction if they're interested, and sometimes it'll even go up past 10, past 20, but it's just a matter of what your audience is looking for. It's also really important to build your customer base. You want people to come back to your shows. You want people to enjoy your shows, and you want loyal customers. I've actually had someone that has purchased from my closet 3 times now, and she just keeps coming back because she loves her items. This is really good, especially for Posh shows, because then you know exactly what the people are looking for. You know their styles, you know their sizes, and you know what they want. So you know exactly what to show, and then you know things are going to sell. So building your customer base is really important and can really be beneficial, especially for success in the shows. This was mentioned before, but you want to be engaging, you want to be welcoming, and you want to keep the conversation going. Welcome everyone. Like you could say, oh, welcome in such and such username, or you want to try and be as welcoming as possible. And another thing that can also really help you is if you have a moderator to help welcome people in and kind of tell them what's going on in the sale, what you're selling, what sizes you're working on, stuff like that. So make sure that if you don't have a moderator, that you are doing that yourself, but it is really helpful to have a moderator that can help you and assist you, whether you have someone in person with you behind the camera, or if you have someone in the chat moderating. Someone can help you make sure that you don't miss comments, make sure that you don't miss bids, and make sure that you stay really, really organized. So maybe that moderator can help you by welcoming people or telling people what's going on in the show. Another great tip to do is to play some music in the background, so it's not just like dead silence that they're listening to. I see so many people that play a bunch of music. You probably want to keep it PG. You don't want there to be a lot of curse words or anything, because I know Poshmark will definitely block that. So make sure that you have some kind of music and it's not too overpowering, but it's still something, because people love listening to music and they love more of a party or a engaging event. Another key thing that I learned is to actually show the item and talk about the item before you hit auction, because this is going to ensure that people can have time to decide if the item is going to work for them or not. So when you talk about the measurements, when you talk about the fit, and you talk about the item in detail, if they can't have enough time to determine if the item's going to fit them, because by the time you're done talking, the auction time is already up, you're not going to make that sale. So if you talk about the item and the sizing and the fit and all of that beforehand, and then you hit auction, it gives people the time to decide if they want the item. So talk about it for a little bit and then hit auction, and then pick the time that you think is going to work best for you. And then it'll give people a more better opportunity to get the item. The next thing that you want to do is definitely use more than one device. So I'm assuming most people would do the shows from a phone, but you could also do them from an iPad. You cannot actually go live or watch lives from a desktop or a laptop right now, but you can use an iPad and a phone to kind of work through the lives and do the lives. And so I use my phone as the main device to go live, and then I use my iPad to kind of load the deck, add the deck, pick the listings, and also add in other people's listings. So if you're going to do that and you're going to change the deck throughout the show, you definitely do need 2 devices. And so I highly recommend having a second device that you can use. And if you don't have a second device, maybe borrow from a friend or something that something like that will help you ensure that you can add more items. And if you really can't do that, then you would have to stick to those 50 that are in your deck the whole show. For me, I found it to be very helpful to have someone in the room with me to make sure I wasn't missing comments, to make sure that I was staying on top of things, and to kind of click the items for me as I was displaying them. But if you don't have that, you could, like I said, have someone moderate in the chat, or you could do it yourself. But I know for me, for the first time doing a live, it was really helpful to have someone here with me. So another quick tip that is kind of helpful, but it's kind of not really talked about a lot, is to encourage people to hit that heart eye emoji button, because that is going to add more people into the show. And if you do that, it'll kind of push the show more. So there's a little heart eye emoji button that they could press, and then that will actually drive the show to more people. Another tip that will be really helpful, and you wouldn't realize how much it would be important, is to keep your phone plugged in and charging during the entire show. Especially if you're going to go live for several hours, you want your phone to not die and to be charged. So for me, I just kept it plugged in the whole time. I have a 10-foot cord, so I was never going to run out of cord space. but keeping it plugged in is going to ensure that you do not have any issues with battery during the show, or that your phone just doesn't die on you while you're in the show. A method that a lot of people find helpful for lives is doing a run or pass method, which is basically just saying, do you want me to run or pass this item before they actually hit auction? So if this works for you, you can do that. But for me, I didn't really have a good customer base yet, and I didn't have enough people in the live to be doing this. But you could try this if it works for you, and that way you don't have to auction every item. You could just say, do you want me to run or pass this item? And if they want you to run it, then you can hit auction. And something important to remember is that people want things cheap. People are going to live shows for cheap items. So do not put your expensive designer items, do not put things that you really want to make a lot of money on, because they're probably not going to sell during the lives. Lives are mainly for cheaper items. Don't get me wrong, you can definitely sell higher end items, but I find that I have the most success when things are really cheap during the lives. And another thing to keep in mind is to let people know about the bundle option during the show, because now there is a way to have the bundle be automatic when people buy multiple things during your show, and this will save them on shipping. So if they buy multiple items, it'll only be one-time ship, and so they'll save money by doing that. So let them know ahead of time that that is an option, and that when they buy things, it's going to be shipped out in one order. Now, if they go over that 5 pounds, you're gonna have to split it up, but most of the time that's not really an issue unless they're buying a lot from you. And the final tip I'm gonna recommend is find a time that works for you and go with that time. A lot of people say they have a lot of success at night doing lives and maybe on the weekends, but if you find that during the day works best for you, then stick to that and do your shows at that time. It really doesn't matter, and it's really up to you, whatever you prefer to do. This is your show and this is your closet, so you choose whatever works and do that. And try out different times and see what's the most successful for you. So these are my tips and tricks on Posh shows and what to do and how to do a Posh show and what I recommend, and is a silent better or is an actual live better. Like I said, I've tried all three. I don't really prefer to be on camera for them, but I know a lot of people have a lot of success doing that. So if it works for you, then go ahead and do that. And I'm also curious, like, what does work for you? So let me know down below if you've tried any lives, if lives are good for you, and also what is your favorite kind of live. And I'm just kind of curious because I'm sure there's people out there that love doing lives, and I'm sure there's also people like me that don't really love doing lives. And I hope you found this video helpful, because I know when I first started and I was first doing lives, I didn't really know how to do anything. I didn't know where to get my information from. And so I thought making a video like this after trying each kind of live would be really, really helpful. If you want to watch another video on things that you should and shouldn't do on Poshmark, you can click right here. And also, if you want to see reselling hacks that you should try, you can click right here. But until next time, I'll see you then.